Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Planning Committee meeting. My name is Councillor David Connor, and I'm Chairman of Planning Committee here at Fenland. Welcome to all those members of the press and public who are joining us via the live stream. Before we begin, may I take this opportunity to remind everyone to turn their mobiles and computers to silent and ensure when using the microphones the red light is on and then turned off when you are finished speaking. So quickly we'll go to agenda item number 1, and I would like to ask member services, with Joe in this case, if we have any apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies received today from Councillor Gershner.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Agenda item number 2 is to confirm and sign the minutes from the meetings of the 13th of December 2023, that's a long time ago, and the 10th of January 24. Do I have a proposal to approve the minutes of December the 13th first? Could I have a proposal? Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Benny. Can I have a show of hands on that case? Thank you. So that's unanimous. So also, can I have a proposal to approve the minutes of January the 10th? Councillor Marks, Councillor Girth, Councillor Imifidon. All those in favour of that? Thank you. So we go to agenda item number 3, which is urgent items. There are none. Quickly to 4. We'll go to the main part, we'll go to agenda 4, which is declarations of interest. Member services will now go to each councillor in turn, and can you please state if you have anything to declare in relation to any agenda item today? Thank you.
Councillor Benny.
Thank you, Joe. Nothing on the agenda today other than item 9 is an FDC application, and as that falls under my portfolio responsibility with Fenland, I will not be speaking or taking part in the debate on that one.
Thank you. Councillor Connor.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Nothing today, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs French.
Nothing.
Councillor Hicks.
Nothing for me.
Councillor Maffedon.
Nothing today, thank you.
And Councillor Marks.
Thank you, Joe. On item 5, I won't be taking part in either the discussion or voting. However, I will be taking part in as a member of the FDC, Councillor Formaney, as an objector. Thank you. And also, sorry, item 8. It's not clear, however, the owner of the road may be known to me via a business connection, but we can't get to the bottom of it, but I still remain open-minded on that.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you for that. Now we'll go to the main part of the meeting. Members should only make a proposal on a planning application when invited to do so. However, I will initially be asking if anybody is going to propose the officer's recommendation. Clearly, if no such proposal is forthcoming, or if the proposal fails, I will then be looking for an alternative proposal. Members are reminded that any such proposal should be accompanied by the planning reasons for doing so. So now, with further ado, I'll hand over to Nikki Carter. She's a Senior Development Officer here at Fenland, present application FYR 230875F, agenda item number 5. So over to you, Nikki. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, may I draw members' attention to an update report which has been circulated. Agenda item 5 is a full application for the change of use of the existing restaurant with rooms to an HMO for up to 12 residents and associated works, retention of the existing 2-bed dwelling and existing outbuilding for storage. The accommodation is required, according to the submitted information, to provide temporary, permanent and flexible living accommodation. An HMO is being applied for, and as such would require a licence and be subject to the necessary legislative requirements. The application site is indicated in red on the location plan and aerial photo. It's located on the western side of Station Road and comprises a 2-storey L-shaped building with single-storey element to the rear. There's a narrow access drive situated between 5 and 7 Station Road, leading to a small parking and garden area. There's also a part single-storey, part 2-storey high outbuilding, which forms the rear boundary of the site. The proposed layout can be seen here. The existing access is being retained, leading to a parking and turning area. Bin and cycle storage is proposed, along with a 2-metre high acoustic fence, to enclose the western and southern boundaries and bin store. The proposed elevations are shown on this slide. Externally, the building remains broadly the same, aside from replacement windows of the same design, the removal of a high-level first floor window in the west elevation and a new first floor window in the south elevation. A condition is proposed to ensure that this window is obscure glazed to prevent any additional overlooking. The proposed floor plans are detailed here. Minor internal alterations are proposed to facilitate this arrangement. These photos show the existing building and its relationship with Station Road. Photos 4 and 5 show the access to the site, including the relationship with the retained two-bed dwelling, and photos 6 and 7, the rear of the site. The site has been the subject of 2 previous applications for planning permission, a 2020 application for up to 18 residents and a subsequent application in 2022 for up to 11 residents, both of which were refused. The former was subject to an appeal which was ultimately dismissed. However, the decision, its conclusions and material consideration in the determination of the current application and one which was not available at the time of the 2022 application was determined. The appeal was only dismissed on the basis of the identified harm to surrounding residents with regards to noise and disturbance. As such, the previously asserted overdevelopment of the site and impact of increased on-street parking demand can no longer be justified. The current application proposes acoustic fencing, which is considered to mitigate potential noise and disturbance to surrounding dwellings, and when considered alongside the lower number of residents from the appeal scheme and absence of any additional identified harm, is not considered to result in significant detrimental impact. As such, the benefits of the scheme, including the reuse of the existing building, effective use of land and provision of affordable accommodation, is considered to outweigh the less than substantial harm now identified. The recommendation is therefore to grant the application.
Thank you, Nikki. We have 2 speakers on this application. Now I would like to invite Lee Bevins, of course he's the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. You have 5 minutes when you're nicely seated. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I had come here today to provide justification for the scheme of up to 12 persons and associated works for HMO at 7 Station Road, and had written a long supporting statement. As members may or may not be aware, the former Classics restaurant with the B&B had accommodation for up to 9 persons on the first floor in the B&B element of the scheme. However, I've had detailed discussions this morning with the District Councillor, Charlie Marks, to discuss the concerns that he feels still exist with the scheme. We've had a very positive discussion and we've tried to find common ground that would suit the applicant and the District Councillor. We discussed at length the sensitive nature of the site and its location in a residential area. We therefore suggest that the best way forward is to agree to a maximum of 9 persons in the HMO for the first 12 months. After which the Housing Compliance Manager, Joe Evans, would review the project and if satisfied with the way the HMO was being operated, would grant the additional 3 persons, still meaning a maximum of 12 persons in the HMO. We would also like it noted that we're very grateful for the support and input from both Joe Evans, the Housing Compliance Manager, and Nikki Carter, the Planning Officer with this scheme to date. I would ask members to support this amendment to the scheme and grant approval today for a 9-person HMO with a review in 12 months to take it to the 12-person HMO. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, questions, clarifications to Mr. Bevins, please. Okay, no, there doesn't appear to be any at all. Thank you for that. for that. Now I'd like to invite Councillor Charlie Marks. He's the ward councillor, to make his presentation to committee. When you're ready, Councillor Marks, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. I'll keep this as brief. Yes, the agent and I have been this morning in negotiation, and I believe the outcome that we have come to is a solution. Obviously, the village is not happy regarding the outcome of 12, but with 9 already in place, I can see no reason why, at the present time, this would be a good way forward. And obviously, the HMO officer would then look at this going over the next 12 months to make sure that she not only is happy, but also working with Fenland and also the owner. So at the moment, I support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marks. Questions, clarifications to Councillor Marks? Councillor Hicks?
Could I just clarify a point? Have you actually had a word with the residents and you've all agreed to this with the local residents around the property?
I've had various communications with various residents. All the residents have been very tuned into the number of 12. There is support, and there is also, there's 20, I think there's 8 or 9 letters of support, and then there is 27 letters of disagreement regarding this property. However, the issue we have is it already has the planning consent for 9 and has had people in there when it was previously a bed and breakfast. So the 9 makes no difference because this could go straight forward anyway.
Yeah, I think. Well, I haven't got a question. I think it's just a comment, really. Really pleased. It just shows what an excellent ward councillor you are, Councillor Marks, to get in conversation with Mr. Bevins, and thank you very much to him as well. I think you've certainly allayed some residents' fears, of course. Obviously, you mentioned they don't really want it, but it's got 9 and we are where we are. But thank you very much for that. If we had a bit more of that in these planning committee meetings going forward, I think it'd be quite a lot easier. So thank you for that. Anybody got any more questions for? He's gone now. Never mind. He couldn't get away fast enough, could he? Members, questions to officers. Thank you. If you have any, Councillor Hicks.
I'll see on the application that the applicant has offered to put an acoustic fence down the side. This is probably a question you can't answer, but hopefully you can. Is there any evidence to say how much percentage-wise the acoustic fence actually reduces the noise? I mean, it would say, for instance, that it works by 25%, 50%. Is there any evidence to support how much noise that will stop?
No, we don't have that. We did consult with Environment Health on the proposal, and they've indicated that the acoustic fence is typical of that, which is requested by them or incorporated by developers as a means of noise mitigation. But no, we don't have that specific evidence or full details of the acoustic fence at this stage. They'd be conditioned to be provided prior to occupation of the HMO.
Thank you for that. Anybody, any more questions for officers at all? No burning desire to see any. Thank you very much for that.
Chairman.
So, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Through you, obviously what has arisen today is an offer to reduce the number of occupants to, was it 9? And then subject to that operating satisfactorily for a period of time, the number increasing to 12. As it stands with the way the application is described in the application, I think we may struggle with facilitating that. It can be facilitated if the applicant is going to do that. 9, if it runs okay, then apply for 12 through the HMO licensing process. So that's one route that could be used. But obviously the control of that would be outside of planning. So I'm sure Mr. Bevans and his client would be true to their word. It would have to be on trust because it's not controlled under the planning permission that may be granted by committee today. If you wanted to control the suggestion made by Mr. Bevans through the planning process, then the description of development would have to be changed. That would have to go out to public consultation, and obviously you may get representations coming back which would have to return to committee. But if all things being equal, if there were no further representations made following the reconsultation, the condition would be that it can only be occupied by 9, and then the applicant would have to reapply after the satisfactory period to bump the numbers up to 12, and kind of like that's going to be a bit difficult and awkward, and Mr. Bevans is thinking that that's perhaps not best for him and his client, and the best way of doing this is through the HMO licensing process. So I just wanted committee to be clear that as it stands, you can't control it through the grant of planning permission, given the way that the application has been described.
For me, I think the second is just too long-winded. I think we could do it through the HMO officer. I think that's where I think we ought to be. But just a question, Councillor.
No, in debate. Not a question, debate. When you're ready.
So we could do that then. So that's fine for that. So, thank you everybody. I'd like to invite members to debate the item in respect of the conditions relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. And okay, thank you. When you go, Councillor French. Always remember your name, Councillor French.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to say I'm very pleased with Mr. Bevans and listening to Councillor Marks. This application has bounced back and forward for several years. Obviously, it lost an appeal. I'm delighted to say that if it's reduced from 12 persons, and I understand what Nick's saying, we don't want this application coming back here again. But to be honest, we've seen it so many different times, and I understand it would be the planning permission would be for 12, but by actually approving this application, it does then give Fenland District Council licensing, the authority to actually license, and that's the proper way to do it. I attended a community safety partnership meeting last week, and one of the things that was heavily discussed with the police was HMOs and new HMOs, and they will be monitoring, and that includes the officers of this authority, will be monitoring them quite strictly. My only concern is the noise, which we've always had concerns about the noise, but as long as that noise can be contained so that the residents are not suffering once again under the Human Rights Article 8, they are entitled to enjoyment of their home. So let's hope it is monitored properly.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor French. Anybody else want to join the debate? Councillor Benny, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, we've got an application in front of us that's got a recommendation for approval. I don't see how this could be turned down in any way. I like the idea of reducing this to 9, but after listening to what Nick's had to say this afternoon, and that can't be done through planning conditions, I really think we have got an application in front of us that's got a recommendation to approve. And this, as Councillor French so rightly said, this has bounced backwards and forwards to committee for over several years. And where it's had problems in the past, it wasn't regulated. By approving it, it then puts Fenland in the position where it can be regulated by the HMO team. This will keep coming back in one form or another if we don't put a decision on this. As much as I would like to have seen it reduced to 9, if that cannot be done, I think 12 is a number that is far better than 18, which was in the previous application. We've got a steer from the inspector's report that came back on this, and I truly cannot see any other way than passing this today. I think that, looking at the report, we can only pass this today. This is an application that is compliant, is in terms of policies, and by doing this, we are putting it in a point where Fenland can regulate this with the HMO team. I'll take on board the concerns that Councillor Marks has. I respect Councillor Marks an awful lot. I think he's representing his residents very well, but equally there is a point where it comes down to planning policy, and in terms of policy, if we can't get that down to 9 today, I think this needs to be approved at 12.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Benny. Anybody else at all? No. Councillor Hicks, thank you.
On a personal note, I'd like to say I'd like to see the idea of both parties getting together and finding some common ground where they both agree on a point. And I agree with both of those, and I'd be quite happy to support the 9 with the we're looking into the 12 later. That's where I am at this particular application.
Yeah, that's fine. Any more? No, not at all. So the debate is closed now. I think we've done that. Officers, have you got anything to add to this?
No, thank you.
No. So, do I have a proposal to go with officer recommendation to grant planning permission? Councillor French? Okay, have we got a seconder? Councillor Benny? So we've got a proposition to go with officer recommendation to approve this application, proposed by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Benny. Can I have a show of hands on that, please?
That application is approved, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Joe. We'll move quickly on to the other one. Thank you. Now hand over to Nikki Carter again to present application FYR 230940, agenda item number 6. So again, Nikki, when you're ready, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, may I draw members' attention to an update report which has been circulated. Agenda item 6 is an outline application for up to 5 dwellings with all matters reserved.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question? None of us appear to have received any updates. We certainly haven't had them today.
We had them yesterday, updates.
Oh, missed it. Okay.
Yeah, certainly were, because I received them. So we are where we are now.
Chairman, is it appropriate to give Councillor French a moment or two to read the updates, or Nikki to give a summary of the update report?
Would you like to?
Because otherwise the decision might be
flawed.
Yeah.
Okay, so shall we have 5 minutes then for updates? Does everybody want to do that? Okay, we'll adjourn it just for 5 minutes to just look at the updates. Thank you. Thank you, members, for doing that quickly. Nikki, would you like to start your presentation again, as you weren't too far into it? Thank you. Who is so kind.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item 6 is an outline application for up to 5 dwellings with all matters reserved. The application site is indicated in red on the location plan and aerial photo. The site is located on the corner of Gosmore Lane to the south and Colletts Bridge Lane to the east and comprises an area of undeveloped scrubland. Colletts Bridge Lane is characterised by frontage development to its eastern side with more sporadic development to the west. This area of Gosmore Lane is also sporadically developed. The indicative site plan is shown here and depicts 5 detached dwellings served by 3 accesses of Gosmore Lane, including a shared access serving plots 1 and 4 to 5. Photos 1 and 2 are from the junction of Colletts Bridge Lane and Gosmore Lane, with the application site behind the road sign. Photo 3 is facing south from Colletts Bridge Lane, taken from the northern corner of the site, and photo 4 is facing east from Gosmore Lane. The application site and built form of Colletts Bridge Lane can be seen in the background. This slide shows relevant recent applications for planning permission in the vicinity of the site. The southern site was granted by Planning Committee in 2022, with members at that time considering the site to be infill. The northern site has been refused 4 times under the current local plan and dismissed twice on appeal, most recently last year, with the inspector considering that the sporadic nature of development on the western side of Colletts Bridge Lane and the affinity of the site with the open countryside, the proposal would not constitute an infill site and would harm the character and appearance of the area. As referred to within the update, the application site does form a residential allocation within the emerging local plan. However, given the very early stage at which the plan is at and significant number of unresolved objections, it is considered that no weight should be afforded to this allocation. In respect of the current development plan, the principle of developing this site is not supported, as it is not considered to adjoin the existing developed footprint as defined by policy LP12 and would not constitute a single dwelling infill site contrary to LP3. Furthermore, the proposal would result in an enclosure and urbanisation of open countryside to the detriment of the character and appearance of the area, eroding the existing open rural character and would arguably set a precedent for further development. As such, the recommendation is one of refusal.
Yeah, thank you once again, Nikki. We have 2 speakers on this application. First, I'd like to invite Peter Bryant. He's an objector to make his presentation to the committee. You've got 5 minutes, so when you get nicely seated, we will start. Thank you.
Good afternoon, councillors. We're here to represent the hamlet of Colletts Bridge. We'd like to stress this is not NIMBYism, but our community is asking the council to uphold the local plan and to care about highway and flooding safety. Moving on to these points. The ELP has no bearing now, but we'll only add that small villages have a target of 9% in the ELP, and LP 65.1 in the new plan is for a 37% growth, which is clearly unsuitable and disproportionate. Turning to the current local plan, this proposal fails all elements of the LP3 consideration. It is for 5 properties, not a single dwelling. It is a mini estate, not an infill, and is not part of an otherwise built-up frontage. Over many applications and 3 appeals, most recently only last November, the council and planning inspectorate officers have described the western side of Colletts Bridge Lane to be predominantly open to the surrounding countryside with a handful of sporadic dwellings. That latest appeal ruled that development on the west side of Colletts Bridge must be in keeping with this and not cause harm. A mini estate would do dramatic harm to both character and appearance. This diagram shows the level of opposition to the application from local residents, both ward councillors and the parish council. Our community wants to protect its character and appearance with flood and highway safety taken into consideration, and we feel they should be heard. The previous map covered an area of only 500 metres. in fact less than that, we've had to zoom out to 3 kilometres to be able to show the 5 distant residential supporters, and they mostly failed to address planning policy and issue generic statements of support. Turning to flooding, this site floods all year round, and local knowledge asserts it's semi-permanently flooded and waterlogged, and this is supported by the middle-level Commissioner's report. They mention a high water table and low infiltration rate. It is covered in reeds, which by definition are wetland plants. It is the natural water runoff for the road on 2 sides. The closest property has flooding problems to the point their ground floor bathroom becomes unusable, and this application would seriously worsen that condition. Worryingly, the submitted drawing indicates that over half the surface of the site would be built on. Moving on to highway safety. The opposite highway splay is incorrect on the diagram supplied. It goes through a hedge which is over 1 metre high. The hedge isn't in the control of the applicant, as I understand it. Correcting this reduces the splay distance even further from just under 40% of the standard 215 metres to just over 1/3. Moving on, Highway's first response to January the 2nd stated that both splays should be 2.4 by 215 metres in either direction, as this is a 60-mile-an-hour road, or that the applicant should present a traffic speed survey to show speeds are low enough. The application does neither. A 69-metre splay is only good for speeds about 40 miles an hour for light vehicles, yet this road is the only approved route for HGVs attending Fenland, and they do that 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Highway's second response on the 17th rests entirely on the phrase, would be unable to build up speed for it to be acceptable. That statement is incorrect and is an evidence-free assertion. We show here the actual speeds reached in a 16-year-old car in slightly damp conditions, daylight and without taking any risks. We drove north on the 1101 and turned left while the passenger noted the speeds. We note when cars exit College Bridge Lane, vehicles from the left may be at or over 30 miles an hour already before they become visible, as you'll see later, meaning drivers only have 2 seconds at best to see the clear road. That is not safe. It is only mitigated because there's quarter of a mile of clear road to the right towards Elm without junctions, and that clear road gives you 15 seconds of time so you can completely focus on traffic coming from the left. The proposed development would destroy that mitigation, and those 15 seconds would become just 1 or 2. The danger would now be in both directions. And all this safe time is about narrowly avoiding a crash. There's no safety margins, no consideration for close shaves. We cannot count the number of times one of us has shouted stop as we move into Gosmore Lane when we drive out. And we should also remember that the majority population of College Bridge is, and historically been, elderly, whose reaction times are, unfortunately, slower. We must also not forget that HGVs cut that 1101 corner from both directions, taking the full width of the road as they turn towards College Bridge. And of course, this is all about considering daylight safe conditions. Thank you. Looking left, that's the view that you see and the speeds that the cars are travelling up towards you when you pull out of College Bridge. So finally, in conclusion, there's no local support, it fails to meet policy, it increases and adds new dangers, and it worsens flooding and drainage issues. I look forward to answering any questions that you may have, but finally I'd like to leave you with this image for your consideration and deliberation. We have copies here if you want to retain them to view during your discussions later. Thank you very much for your time.
Yep, thank you very much. Members, questions to Mr. Bryan, if you have any. No, thank you very much.
Is it permitted to leave those for people for councillors to look at?
You can leave them on. You can obviously leave them next door to Councillor Hicks if you like, and if we feel the need to have a look at them, obviously in debate or whatever, we can hand them round.
Please demonstration of speed concerns.
Yep, that's absolutely super. If any member feels the need, we can pass them round.
Thank
you. Just hang on a moment for the record till Councillor Marks picks these up, and then we'll crack on. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. Now I'd like to invite Liam Lunn-Towler. He's the agent to make his presentation to the committee. You've also got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Illustrated on the overhead images are say in the context of College Bridge. Highlighted in blue are the existing dwelling houses. Shown in yellow south of RSA is a dwelling approved by Committee in 2021 as mentioned in the para 10.29 of the officer's report. As shown in green is southeast of the say is a recently approved bar conversion for 2 dwellings. In our opinion, based on the above image, the application site sits within the built form of College Bridge. The site is strongly related to the core built form of the settlement and development would add positively to the street scene of the area. To support this opinion, under the draft local plan, the application, this site is allocated under reference LP 65.01. We understand the draft local plan holds limited weight at this time, but policy consideration has been undertaken to warrant its allocation. We think since the site is in flood zone 1 area, grey weight has been attached for its allocation. And I take this chance to comment on flooding concerns raised by the parish and neighbours. The site currently experiences very small forms of localised puddles, not flooding. This is because the site has not been harvested since before 2010. The applicant has cut the land where required to prevent it from overgrowing and causing a nuisance. But this has resulted in the land being compacted and preventing natural drainage. The reason for the applicant not harvesting the application area is because of its small, awkward shape, making it difficult to farm. As seen in the image above, the applicant has avoided the area in favour of creating a square land to cultivate, to make it easier. As such, we can overcome drainage concerns with discussions with middle level to promote design drainage of the land at reserve matter stage. The applicant owns the land west of the application site. The land is highlighted in grey, but it might not be so easy to see on the screen. But north of that and west of that ownership is land drains, which could be eventually support this development, or we can explore SUDs or similar drainage designs. Furthermore, an angular water foul main runs through the east side of the site for foul water removal. As such, for the purposes of the application today, the committee can put a drainage condition on an approval if they are minded to approve today. The officer report supports this as that a drainage can be added under para 10.19. As such, plan officers have no concerns with flooding or drainage. Other than that, as I just mentioned, through the application we listened to neighbours' concerns about having an access onto College Bridge Lane. We removed this entirely to only have an access from Gosmore Lane. Subsequently, the highways have no objection to the current proposal before committee today. In any event, this application does not commit any matters. As such, the only matter for considering today is the principal development, so the access can be moved, and the drawing is only illustrative for today. In conclusion, we are of the opinion that the application site can be considered within the built form of the settlement as supported with allocation in the draft local plan. Further, the site is within the lowest flood risk zone, and matters of drainage can be committed and designed at a later date. As such, we respectfully ask the committee to approve the application today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Members, questions, clarifications to Mr. Lund-Taylor? Councillor French, thank you.
Thank you. How do you propose to get rid of the sewage?
There's an angular water site, angular water asset that runs through the east side of the site. It runs roughly from where plot, I believe 4 is, running north to an angular water sewer.
And what about surface water?
That we would design for a specialist design. The illustrative the illustrative drawing shows a mixture of grassland, but we can achieve this through soakways. Although middle level suggests this may not be achievable, but that's subject to infiltration tests and specialist recommendation. Or, as I said, there's land drains north and west of the further end of the applicant's ownership, or if need be, would use a SUDS design or something similar to handle that. At the minute, it floods, or not floods, it puddles because there's no opportunity for it to go anywhere. It's compacted. And the only way we can resolve that is if we design something that can achieve and drain that site properly.
Thank you for that. I'm actually the county council for that area, and I can assure you that area has flooded. Okay. I remember many phone calls in 2020, 2021, and also I sit on the drainage boards. I certainly would not be looking to support this application in its present form until a proper flooding scheme is actually set out. I've got flooding all over parts of my county division, I'm experiencing personal flooding as well because of the way some people have not conformed to what they promised to do. So I'm sorry, I cannot support this.
Yeah. Councillor Hicks.
In the report, I flagged up two things. Point 5.3 middle level report. Point 3 high water table. Although there's this is in flood zone 1, this particular area of land is in a high water level, which wouldn't lend itself to SUDs. And also it said because of the nature of the soil there being clay, it wouldn't lend itself to having a soakaway system either. And then you go to point 5.4, which is a marshy area adjoining. That is the Anglian Water Report, and that said it's you can't connect to the local sewage system because it's already overwhelmed already. So what other options are there?
I couldn't comment on that today. I can't comment on drainage design. The matter for today is for principle of development there, which we would approach the appropriate specialist to recommend those once they have all the factual data, which can be conditioned through
as far as I'm aware, there's actually 3 levels to tackle this problem, and if all 3's cut off, I don't think. I was just wanting you to tell me another option, so we've got rooms to manoeuvre on this.
Yeah, the middle level did suggest if measures such as even having a land drain continuing from the most kind of eastern end, continuing that kind of square and crossing the applicant's land to a point that could be explored as well. So you're connecting up the land drains to the rest of the network.
Did you want to carry on? You're happy? Anybody else want to? Any more questions at all? Some very prevalent questions asked there. Thank you very much. Now, members, questions to officers, if you have any. No? No, nobody seems to have got any questions for officers, which is... So, right, thank you everybody. I'd now like to invite members to debate the item in respect of material considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. So we're in debate. And Councillor French.
Thank you. Yeah, I believe that the officers have got this spot on. Yes, we're talking about the emerging local plan, but as we all know, it's not far enough along to give any weight whatsoever to it at this time. And certainly I would not want to see this sorted out until the drainage system is sorted out, because we've seen it time and time again.
That's a good point. Good point. Still in debate, everybody. Anybody else want to add? Yeah. We'll take Councillor Hicks and Councillor Benny.
I think this report stands alone. I think it's all laid out there with the drainage system. For my part, I can't be supporting this. There's just not enough work done on the drainage for me.
Councillor Benny, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Talk of drainage doesn't figure in the reasons for refusal. Reasons for refusal is LP3, building in the open countryside, LP12 and LP16D, which are subjective in answer. We have passed these before with conditions of a drainage scheme coming forward. In fact, many years ago, I came to David and said about the elms in Chatteris flooding, and he said the best thing you could do, build next to it, because the drainage scheme would probably alleviate the problem. So, as much as I look at this and there is drainage and that there are pictures there, it would have to have a drainage scheme to be passed. If it was passed, the drainage scheme would have to come forward to prove that there is a scheme that would work. And they are not the reasons for refusal, Mr. Chairman. It's, do we consider this LP3, building in the open countryside, or two very subjective and very specific to this site? Does it give a positive or negative outlook, interpretation of the site? The drainage is not the issue on this one.
No, it's a point. Anybody else want to come into the debate at all? Councillor French?
It's very seldom I disagree with my fellow councillor, but I certainly do disagree with regard to flooding. Flooding is an issue, and it's going to get worse with the amount of dwellings right across the whole of Fenland. As I said before, I will not support this application if it comes back later on with the emerging plan and all the drainage schemes are properly in place, and I don't think they can do a SAD through County Council. Not this one.
Yeah, I'm like you. I don't tend to disagree what you're saying really, and Councillor Benny's made some good points. But as flooding is really prevalent in Fenland in the last few weeks, and we've all been asked to go out and help residents, I think we have to be mindful of where we are. So my thoughts are, yes, if it comes back as a proper drainage plan, like you, if it's land in the new local plan, which we can't give any weight to at all, it comes back 18 months time, 2 years time, with a proper drainage plan, we'll probably having a look at it again. But in its present form, this application, I'm sorry, Councillor Benny, I can't really support this. Thank you. Bring you in.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I wasn't supporting. I was just or going against it. I was just saying that flooding is not the reasons that are listed in the report for refusal. Now, also, if this comes back with a drainage scheme that members do find acceptable, and we turn it down, do we turn it down on all three of the reasons for refusal today? Do we consider it open countryside? Because we're saying, if we say we turn it down on all three, then you can't get over the fact that it is LP3. If it's considered that it is in the open countryside, then you can't get over that one. LP12, positive contribution, that's very subjective, so that one could. What are we going to turn it down on today? If we turn it down, are we turning it down on all three reasons, or are we going to choose 1, 2, or any multiple choice of that? This is about the policy, Mr. Chairman. I fully understand about the drainage, and I fully support this, but to turn it down on something that is not in the report, or reasons that are not in the report, I don't think is looking at the policies correctly.
Just for the record, I was just on disagreeing with your comments about flooding. That's all that I was agreeing on. Councillor Marks, thank you.
Thank you. I've listened quite intently. I like most villages, flooding is such a major issue at the present time. But you look at the other reasoning. Do you believe this is an elsewhere location? You know, I went and had a quick look at this. I drove it. The house is backing on. There's a road there. I think, you know, we probably, if we're going to come back and just give one reason, which is flooding, but we probably need to clear the other three, or the other two at least, stroke three. I personally don't feel it's an elsewhere location. I mean, I don't know what other people have done, if other people have been out to have a look at it. You know, and this will come back. There's no doubt about it. And there is a very big field beside it as well. So it then makes you wonder whether that field will follow on thereafter. So, as I say, at the moment, yeah, flooding I can understand, but I think we do need to give a steer on the three reasons why, or the three reasons that have been given for turning it down, as to what our feeling is with that.
I'm happy. I'm happy if anybody wants to carry on with that. Certainly, flooding is an issue with me, but carry on, Councillor Benny. Can you've got any? Sorry, I'll bring Nick in, then I'll bring Councillor. Oh, go, Councillor Benny, carry on.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, I see the reasons why it is, but they're not the listed reasons, and I just want to clarify where this sits, because we can't turn this down on flooding because that's not what's in the report. The report doesn't say that. It points out the highlights, the potentials of flooding, but equally a drainage scheme, which is a technical solution, which Nick has told us many times before, sometimes alleviates that. If the technical solution was brought forward, and I don't know. We only go on the reports that are in front of us. Whether it's yes, it is possible. It may be that no, there isn't a technical report that could, or a technical scheme that could solve that. But we are turning this down. If we're going to turn it down today, flooding is not a reason for turning it down. It is LP3, LP12, and LP16D. Now, we quite regularly go against those in the committee. We've got to consider that we are consistent with our decision making. And do we turn it down on all three, or do we turn it down on? Well, I'm fairly sure this is going to get a refusal, and I could support a refusal on this. but more from a policy point, and this will come back. You know, where do we turn it down? That is my reason. I accept the flooding, and you know, there are, with every site there is, even in flood zone 1, there is a drainage scheme that has to be brought forward, and I see that. But it's to the committee. What are we going to turn this down on today? I'm pretty sure it will be turned down, Mr. Chairman, but on what points?
Okay, Councillor French.
Thank you. Reading the report, we sit here month after month complaining and moaning that middle level don't respond to us. Middle level have responded and responded quite in depth. Now, over the months, the years we've sat here, we've added conditions. So why can't we add a condition that we're concerned about flooding in this area? It's a question to Nick or David.
Please.
Yeah. I think we need to start from the top in respect of this application. So as a team of planning officers, you know, we're not saying this is an elsewhere location. What we're saying is that you've got a set of rules, so to speak, that need to be followed in order to determine whether or not a development is acceptable or not. And for this settlement, the development proposed has to be an infill proposal, and it's quite evident that it isn't an infill proposal for one dwelling, because it doesn't sit between two buildings, it's for more than one property, etc., etc., etc. So that's a clear fail against the policy test. Secondly, it is quite an expansive area. We've got the appeal decision, which was referred to by the case officer early in her presentation. And again, you know, as I've said at previous meetings, what has changed since that appeal decision? Answer: nothing has changed. So logic dictates that you should be coming to the same conclusions that the inspector did in respect to the nature and character of this particular location. So we've got two issues there. One, it doesn't fit the criteria for infill development, and it's quite obvious and has been confirmed by an independent person that this location has a countryside character to it. In terms of Councillor French's question, if you are going to approve it, then quite naturally you would ask for a drainage scheme to be added as a condition to any consent. If you wanted to add your concerns about drainage to the reasons for refusal, you can do that as well. And what I recommend you do is look again at the comments made by the IDB in respect of drainage. And for example, and I'm careful trying not to lead the witness, so to speak, you'll have observed that the IDB indicated that draining the site is not without its challenges, and may be quite sort of costly and may require, and I can't recall this for sure, I think it mentioned that third-party land may be involved, but I can't guarantee that, so that's a note of caution there. Thank you, Chairman. Was there anything else, David, that you wish to add? Thank you.
Did you want to add anything else, David, or did I miss a shake of the head? Okay, Councillor French, have you got a question for officers?
Well, it's just a comment really. It's not the drainage board, it's middle level itself. It's not an individual board. I mean, I sit on 11 drainage boards, so I know a little bit about water. For middle level to actually write in, that really is something special, because normally it would just be an engineer or the chairman of the whatever internal drainage board it was. And yes, if and I hope this application is refused, I would like that condition put on as a matter of refusal.
Nikki, can you just let me know, it's obviously a question, when the appeal, I know you didn't mention it, but it's just gone straight out of my head, when the appeal inspector made the appeal decision. No, I'm sorry.
November last year.
Sorry, I was just saying to that gentleman there, we can't have people interjecting. November last year. So
28th of November 2023.
So that's in 22. That's in 23 then, isn't it? Yeah. No. Just having a little think to myself. Okay, Councillor Marks, while I do that.
Well, I'll ask the question. I was just wondering what, and it comes back to drainage again. Obviously, looking at FYR 211494F, what drainage system they had. It's about half the size of, and it's literally across the road. I was just wondering what mitigation they put in place.
Still thinking. It's David, carry on.
Thank you. Through you, Chairman. I think when you look at the two application sites, they are distinctly different. My recollection of the one to the south of Gosmore Lane was that essentially that was sort of domestic garden rather than what is uncultivated land to the north. So, very, very dissimilar, really.
Okay. Any more questions to officers at all? No. Can't see any more. Thank you very much for that. So, do I have a proposer to go with officer's recommendation to refuse planning permission? To refuse. Councillor Benny, seconded by Councillor French. So we've got a proposer to go with officers to refuse this application. To refuse it.
So, Chairman,
yeah, you've got to vote. We can't allow that on your last meeting, can we?
Chairman, I'm mindful of a comment made by Councillor French a few moments ago, and I'm not sure whether or not so there was a slight hiccup in what she said, whether or not she wanted drainage included as a reason for refusal. But you mentioned condition instead, so I wasn't sure which way you want.
Yeah,
so, Chairman, if you're going to add drainage as a reason for refusal, then we need a set of words.
Well, Councillor French, you're the drainage expert. You brought this up. And also, we can also be consistent because only 3 months ago, the planning inspector turned that down as well. So we're consistent with the inspector's decision. Yeah? Just reiterate that, can you?
If you look at the comments from middle level, starts at 10.14, flooding and drainage issues. Although it's in flood zone 1, as we know, sometimes these flooding areas don't mark. But if you take 10.17, I don't propose to read all this out, 10.17, 10.18 and 10.19, that gives the reason concern for flooding. Is that enough?
So you're happy with that, Nick?
It's what I've been given, Chair.
Well, yeah, that's fine. Also, of course, were you going to come back on the inspector's decision that I made? We could put that obviously in there, can't we, as well? And nothing's changed on that one, has it?
Through you, I don't think it would be appropriate to quote the other appeal in the reasons for refusal.
That's fine.
In front of you.
That's fine. That'll do then. So we'll go on those then. We're clear on the refusal then, are we?
Yes.
Okay. So just a couple of minutes ago, we had a proposal from Councillor Benny, seconded by Councillor French, go with officer recommendation to refuse this application can have a show of hands on that one.
That's a unanimous decision, Chairman.
Yeah, that's application's been refused. Thank you. Quickly on, hand over to David.
Chairman, you just want to hang on, I think some people are leaving.
Righty ho. Okay, move on to, I'll now hand over to David Rowan. He's the development manager here at Fenland to present application F/YR 23-09810, agenda item number 7. So David, when you're ready, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an outline application with matters committed in respect of access to erect a single dwelling on land north of 59 Stowe Road in Wisbech. Initially just draw members' attention to the update report that's been circulated. In addition to this update report, a further representation has been received from a resident of Stowe Road, raising concerns about the suitability of the access track, with particular reference to emergency service vehicles being able to access any development. So the application site is outlined in red, as shown on the location plan and aerial photos. The site is an area of undeveloped mixed mature scrubland located on the east side of an access track that joins Stowe Road between numbers 57 and 61, and which is indicated by the slightly wiggly, shall we say, red line boundary that's been submitted. So moving on to the indicative site plan, as indicated earlier, the application is in outline with matters committed in respect of access. The submitted indicative site plan depicts a detached dwelling denoted as a 3-bed bungalow. As you can see on the left-hand side of the image with the sort of greyed out area, it's proposed as part of the application to improve the first 10 metres of the access track, with also a bin collection point shown in this location as well, and then with a parking and turning area shown to the front of the dwelling, which is obviously in the sort of the top right-hand corner of this image, with the sort of slightly creamy colour in front of the proposed bungalow. In terms of the access track, just on this plan, members' attention is drawn to the 90-degree turn on the track in front of number 59, and also the restricted width of this in this vicinity as well. The depiction of the possible bungalow appearance and layout is shown here. This would obviously have to be agreed at the reserved matter stage, however. And we now have some photographs of the site. So photo 1 is the view from Stowe Road, sort of up the access track toward the first bend at number 59, and the informal parking area of number 57, which fronts onto Stowe Road, is shown on the left. Photo 2 is facing north along the track, sort of from the first bend, so almost in front of number 59. And then the application site is sort of on the right hand side, sort of a distance along that track. And then photo 3 is facing sort of south from the sort of the next bend in the track. So the garage shown on that right hand side is the garage serving number 51, which is one of the properties fronting Stowe Road. So the application site is immediately opposite that garage, so on the left hand side of that photo. Photo 4 here is how the site appeared in a site inspection in September 2022, and then photo 5 is taken from the submitted ecology report and is a sort of fairly accurate depiction of the site as it is sort of today, taken sometime around September 2023, and there's been some site clearance or vegetation clearance on the frontage of the site and also within the centre of the site. The site is located within the adopted East Wisbech Broad Concept Plan. and this is sort of denoted on these two images here. So the application site is shown with the star in the sort of the top left-hand corner of the BCP. And as you can see, it's sort of very much at the extremes of the BCP, and as such is not considered to have any implications for the wider development of this. Just to explain these two figures, the top figure is an extract from the BCP showing the value of the habitat and likely retention probabilities during development of the BCP. And then the bottom figure is an extract from the supporting ecological appraisal. So to summarise, while the Highway Authority have not objected to the application given the lack of impact on the public highway, so at the junction of the access track and Stowe Road, they have raised issues regarding the substandard nature of the track and the safety issues which could arise from this. These issues were actually borne out in a previous refusal of planning permission on the site for up to 2 dwellings in the late 1980s. As such, it is not considered that a safe or convenient access is proposed as set out within the relevant policy of the local plan. The bin drag distance from the new dwelling to the bin collection point at the frontage of the site that I referred to earlier would be along an unmade track and in excess of 60 metres. Again, this is considered to be unacceptable. In combination with these two issues, it's considered that the sort of slightly enclosed nature of the site and the fact it's surrounded by sort of fairly dense woodland and scrubland would result in a lack of outlook and a sense of enclosure to that dwelling, and in combination with the substandard access, the bin drag distance would overall result in a poor living environment for the future occupiers of the dwelling and an overall substandard level of amenity. Finally, the development would result in a loss of biodiversity at the site, which would not be adequately addressed through mitigation nor outweighed by any substantial public benefit arising from the development. The recommendation is therefore to refuse the application as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, David. We have one speaker on this application. I would now like to invite Matthew Hall, of course he's the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. Obviously, you've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Within the officer's report, it states, the principle of development, residential development of this site is acceptable, subject to other details. The site history within the report shows a previous refusal on the site, as David said. That was in 1987, 37 years ago. The other application site referred to in the history is on the other side of the road. That was 16 years ago. So since 1987, there's been no refusals or applications on this site. Within the report, members will have noted that there have been 2 applications withdrawn at this site. One of those was due to biodiversity. We commissioned the ecology report. That was by a different company that didn't answer any of the questions, and then that company is no longer trading, so we withdrew. And a second ecology report has been submitted and reviewing comments from Cambridgeshire County Council Ecology Department. They've recommended conditions, which I've spoken to the applicant, and he's happy to agree to those, and those can be accommodated on the site. Could we have the Google map on the screen again, please? Thank you. So obviously you can see the red line is this site. Directly to the north of this site, which isn't mentioned in the report, within the last 2 years, a planning in principle application has been approved for up to 9 dwellings. That's not been built out. That's been approved. That's directly to the north of this site, an area there. And you can see that this site is clearly within the built-up form of Wisbech. The application has the support of Wisbech Town Council and is all located in Flood Zone 1. Cambridgeshire County Council Highways, as David said, have raised no objection to this proposal, and the proposal is to tarmac the entrance to the site, which wouldn't just benefit this site, it would also benefit other users of this site, which there's at least, to my knowledge, 2 further dwellings beyond this site of that access, and also there's a former nursery, a large nursery there as well, which is beyond this site. We've also proposed to widen that access out in front of this site to 5.5 metres, which would provide a passing place for all to use. So these improvements would benefit obviously this site, but also other users of the access. It's a single plot. located in Flood Zone 1, has the support of Wisbech Town Council, and makes improvements to the access for all users, and also provides a passing place with the photos that we saw on the screen. Could we have the photos up again, please, David? Thank you. So the first photo in the top left, there's a car park there, which it shouldn't be, and I believe the applicant has taken that up with the neighbour. So the access, when you look on land registry, is a full width, and also I believe those trees on the right-hand side on the first photo, that's all part of the access. So the access at the top is probably about 6 metres wide, and it does narrow down, as David said. Thank you.
Interesting. Members, questions, clarifications to Mr. Hall? Councillor Marks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Just sorry, you said 6 metres with the does that mean some of the trees are going to be removed? I went to site, I got lost trying to find the place. You just said 6 metres, so I'm just clarification of that. Are there some trees going to be removed on that?
Looking at the first photo, the access on the land registry and on site, the car on the left is parked on the access. You shouldn't be. The trees on the right hand side, I believe, are within the access when you look on land registry, so they would also need to be removed. Yes. So once you take into account the car, the access, and the trees, that's how you've got that width there. Yes.
Okay. So following on from that, if we can go back to the other, the drawing, the map, the Google map, if it's all possible. Right. Thank you. On the left-hand side, it looks like the red line goes straight through the property by the road. Is that correct?
No, the property's on the actual, that's the boundary of the property. So there's a thin line there, which is verge grassland, which is just below the red line. The actual red line there, this isn't one of my maps. It's actually on the side of that property.
Okay.
So it definitely doesn't.
So it's where we saw the garage, the picture of the garage and stuff. That's not all coming.
Oh, that's the garage is further round. I think the picture David showed is further round the garage.
Is that? Sorry, can we go back one?
Yes, that's further round the track. I think when I went there last, I think David was yeah. So that's further round the corner, as it were.
Right. Can we just go back to the other map then? Sorry, I'm so that, see where are you saying the garage is?
It's where our site is, top left-hand corner of our red line. There's a square there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Questions been answered, Councillor Marks?
Thank you. Yes, sorry.
Anybody else at all? Councillor Miffordin, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I did have a look at this site. It's not far from me, and it's in my district council ward as well. One of the many questions I have is, it says in the report that the bend is a 90-degree bend, isn't there? Is there any way that visibility can be improved in that bend? And also, one more, with the bin collection as well. The bins will have to be wheeled out one day, and within the report, I think it says around 60 meters. I didn't measure it myself. Like I said, I know this place, and the access to this place is worse than that photo when I saw it. It's way overgrown. I don't know when that picture was taken. It's not recent. Thank you.
So we are trying to improve the access both where it abuts Stowe Road and also further around in our site, which is land in our ownership. The actual 90-degree bend that's been there for probably longer than I've been alive. We can't improve that. That's where people's properties are on land registry. So can we improve that 90-degree bend? No. The actual bins, there's 2 further properties and a nursery, which may be redundant now, round the corner. I believe, I'm not saying 100% for certain, I believe the bin lorry, a reduced one, may enter this access and go down the end and come out. I cannot be 100% sure on that. If not, people would need to wheel their bins to the top. But I think the bin lorry may go down this road. I'm not 100% sure on that though.
Thanks,
Yeah, please carry on, yeah.
Yeah. I know you said the Ben has been there for a long time, but that property hasn't been there. And also, I have never seen a smaller bin lorry gone down my road. Like I said, I'm not far from Stowe Road. I live in the ward, I'm district council of the ward, so I don't know if there's a smaller bin lorry that serves that area.
That's officers may know, but I suspect that bin lorry may go down there, but I'm not 100% sure. Because there are two further properties down there in the nursery, which may, as you know, yes.
Is that the extent of your questioning? Thank you. Councillor Benny, thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this would be best to officers or Mr Hall. What about private bin collection rather than the FDC? Because they overcome some of the problems of...
It's a question to Mr Hall first to see if they were willing to do that.
Yes, they would be. That wouldn't be an issue. Yes, he would be.
Okay, Councillor Marks.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Hall. One thing I've just noticed, how do you turn the car around? How? Because the car would go in forward, that's then pointing this way to come back out.
The layout was shown as indicative, was shown how to, it's tight to turn in, but we've also the access there, the access track there, I think it's about 2.9, 3 metres wide, and that's why we're shown to widen it out to 5.5 metres all on the frontage of our site. So that layout is indicative. We can change that parking around.
Okay, any more questions for Mr Hall before we let him go? No, thank you very much. That's good, thank you. Members, it's time for questions, clarifications to officers, if you have any, of course. Can't. Is there no questions at all? Last chance. Councillor Marks is reading. No, you're happy. So, right, thank you for that. So, thank you, everybody. I'd now like to invite members to debate the item in respect of the material planning considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. So, we're in debate. Councillor Marks, you're looking. I don't know. Go on, Councillor Marks. I'll carry on. Kick it off.
I have to say, I went to see this and I struggled to find it. It's a very, very narrow site, and I've got a couple of concerns of the site itself. Biodiversity, well, it's it is one of those where we can cut some weeds back or whatever. It's a bit overgrown and not the nicest of site by any means. My feeling is it's just the access is the issue that we're going to have. People will pull bins 60 metres. When they buy a house, they know, or alternatively, as Councillor Benny has said, they can get a private refuge company in. It's just a very, very tight site. And I was looking at turning vehicles and stuff. But again, it's buyer beware, isn't it? So I'll wait to hear what everybody else has got to say, I think.
Anybody else got to add to that? Councillor Benny, I thought you might.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I haven't visited site since I don't get my mileage paid for, and I've been rather busy. Sorry?
So Benny, just for the record, you can get paid for it, but I understand that you've been very busy.
Yeah, I have. And it does pay to visit a site for this very reason, but I have been a bit busy this week and I haven't got it. This is an outline application. It is access is, or the actual design of the bungalow is not. This is just indicative, so that could be improved. I'm sure the turning space could be improved in the reserve matters application that will follow, or full application, whichever. There is improvement in this site, making the access more open. If the trees go, we've got parking space down there. The bins can be overcome by a private collector. And as to the outlook not being very good, well, that's down to the person who buys it. And if nobody thinks that outlook will be terrible, you won't buy the site. does this blender having a house put on it? Well, number 59 is there, one building up. I personally don't see much wrong with it. I think there are, the access is tight, but we passed things with tight access before. Fenland District Council sold some garage land off in Whittlesea, and that access was far, far tighter than this is. And I think we approved it for 3 dwellings, and it had another application that came back in for 9 that we was actually refused later on. So the access, it's not high traffic volumes. I can't see where people are going to be speeding along there. It's got a parking space to it, a passing space. The bins we can overcome, and the outlook, well, that's down to the person who buys it, and that outlook will probably not stay the same as it is today. You never know what's going to come around the corner, and the market will decide.
Councillor Hicks.
Regarding the entrance of this seems quite familiar to the last agenda on last month's applications we had regarding site access. And we agreed with that one to give the applicant a chance to go back and do certain things to the entrance to that particular property. In the things of consistency, is this not appropriate on this site to do something similar?
I think, just to come in there, I think Mr Hall has intimated that something will be done with the access, to be honest. So I think it's a very pertinent question you did, Councillor Hicks, but it's been indicated that something will be done with the access by removing some of or all of the trees and asking that guy to remove his car, which is probably illegally parked there as far as the owner of the site's concerned. So I think probably that has if we're going to, I think that's been addressed. But Councillor Marks.
Thank you. Just on that, it is a lot different to the one at Chatteris that we if you're referring to the one at Chatteris, there was a brick wall and I think it was 700 mils worth of pavement, whereas this is a lot different and got a lot bigger splay, as you can see by the tarmac area they're looking to put in anyway. And going to Outlook, we've just passed, or you've just passed a HMO in Maney. Well, that has no outlook. That literally looks into, well, by the sounds of things, it's going to be an acoustic fence. So what in one breath we're saying about outlook is are HMOs and people who live in HMOs not allowed, are we saying that it's one of those, it's one rule for one rule for another? At the end of the day, I go back to it's buyer beware.
Well, they always say in planning terms, if you want a view, you've not necessarily got one by a picture, don't they? Because what's likely today, you've got a lovely view. You probably won't have one in 6 or 8 months' time or whenever. So that's really not a material planning consideration. That's buyer beware, as said before. So
we now have a Fenland car park out of our bedroom window at Maney. We didn't have that 2 years ago.
Okay. I think point's been well made. Can we move? Anybody else got anything to? Councillor French, how could you ever disappoint me? Right. Any more in the debate then? No. Right, officers. Would you like to carry on, David?
Thank you, Chairman. 1 or 2 points I think to perhaps try and clarify. I mean, I think firstly in terms of the access. Yes, there are improvements to the access at the junction with Stowe Road. That's acknowledged in the report and acknowledged in what highways say. However, it's effectively the bit between Stowe Road and the application site, the 90-degree blind bend, 2 metre, probably 2.5 metre wide when I paced it out yesterday. Access track essentially on an unmade sort of carriageway. In terms of buyer beware, ultimately, one of the aims of the planning system is to create high-quality living environments for people. Now, if members feel that a property accessed along this sort of a track with a potential 60-metre drag distance for bins, with limited outlook, light ingress, outlook is different to a view as well. Just to clarify that for members' benefit, is a high-quality living environment. Then it's within your gift to go against the officer recommendation.
Yeah, I think that's summed up nicely, David. Right. Any more? Would you like to add to that?
No,
Okay. So, do I have a proposer to go with officer recommendation to refuse planning permission? To refuse it, just to be clear. That seems to have fallen down. There doesn't seem to be a proposer or a seconder. So we need a different proposer or proposal. Councillor Benny?
No. Yeah, I propose that we go against officer recommendation on this one and approve the application.
Reasons, please.
Coming to that.
Good.
I would like to see a private bin collection dealt with on this, so it takes away the 60-metre drag for whoever buys this salubrious site. And reasons, I feel that that Mr. Hall has made it clear that the access is going to be improved. As Councillor Marks so rightly said, the people who we just passed for in Maney don't have much of a view, and the people who hear, whatever that view may be, is that down to us to decide what people should and shouldn't look at. I think that as with the access improving, it is a site that would take a bungalow of an indicative view that is there, or an indicative site there. And I think that it's certainly part of Wisbeach, and it will be a positive contribution to the street scene when it's completed.
And Mr. Chairman, we've got ecology reason as well, because that was a reason for refusal. So it's acceptable.
Off you run again. It's ecology. Have we got any answers for that one?
There is still a large part of ecology there. There is the fields and the land around it. You know, as much as we have to share with nature, nature has to share with us, and therefore I think the loss of ecology in this particular site is outweighed by the benefit of the development.
Yeah, I think that quite sums it up quite nicely, to be fair. David?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, just to pick up on Councillor Benny's point about would like to see a condition about private bin collection. I don't think that's something that we could actually stipulate explicitly. I think the condition that we would have to put on would be that details of a refuse collection strategy are to be agreed, and if that's then in the applicant's control as to what they come in with in that respect.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
that's fine.
quite happy with
That's
that.
absolutely fine. Yeah, I mean it's in the applicant agent's court then, isn't it? So yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay. Yeah. So right. So we have got a proposal to go against officer recommendation to approve this application. It's proposed by Councillor Benny. Have I got a seconder? We'll say Councillor Marks this time. So can I have with those conditions on as well, obviously, that have been aforementioned.
And other conditions as appropriate.
As appropriate. So, can I have a show of hands on that proposal, please?
That's a unanimous decision, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. So that application's been approved, just for the record. Councillor French is looking at me longingly for a tea break, and I shall say 10 minutes and we need to be back. Thanks. Before we start to the next agenda item, Councillor Benny's got a declaration that he forgot. So would you like to make your declaration now, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I declare this at every meeting, and today I just forgot when it was in declarations. Matthew Hull is known to me. We've worked together on Chatteris Grove and Fenland project. He's also done some work for me privately, well before I became a councillor, and he's also doing some plans for a conservatory for me, which was what I was just talking to him about. But that in no way sways me in any way to the decision making that I will make here today. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So without further ado, I'll now hand it over to David Rowan to present application F/YR23/0438. F, agenda item number 8. So David, when you're ready, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is an application for the change of use of land and agricultural buildings to a builder's yard and plant hire depot, including the erection of palisade fence and gates, earth bund, and also new access works. I would just draw members' attention initially to the update report that's been circulated in respect to this application. So the application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. As you can see, it's an isolated group of farm buildings which is accessed by a Marriott's Drove, and Marriott's Drove is included within the red line application boundary and is a public byway which runs from the B1093 to the north, and that is the main road between Benwick and Whittlesey, just to help members to locate themselves. So a wider aerial image here shows the location of the site relative to nearby settlements. Hopefully members can see obviously Whittlesey sort of to the northwest and Benwick to the southeast, and the application site is obviously indicated by that red star. So the plan on screen shows the proposed layout of the site. Largely it's utilising existing buildings, existing hardstanding within the site. However, members' attention is drawn to the 3 green areas sort of around the site, which indicate the location of the 3 metre high bunding. And also members' attention is drawn to the dwelling to the south of the site, which is denoted by the sort of the number 20 in that bottom right hand corner. So existing and proposed elevations of the buildings are shown here, as I say, largely utilising the existing structures on site. And then here we have details of the site boundaries with the bunding and fences apparent. Improvements to the junction of Marriott's Drove with B1093 are proposed as part of the application. These are shown here. However, these works require the use of land not incorporated within the red line application boundary. So, for example, the plan here shows the adjacent ditch needing to be shortened by approximately 2.5 metres. There's an annotation which unfortunately probably just can't quite make out on this plan to that effect. Yet the red line boundary plan submitted with the application shows the extent of the site to be approximately 2 to 3 metres from the edge of that ditch. There's something of a discrepancy there. So here we have photos showing the nature of the site currently, and also in the bottom sort of left corner, Marriott's Drove immediately adjacent to the site. You can also see in that image the proximity of the dwelling, which doesn't form part of the application site, to the buildings. And then moving on to these images here, which show which are from street view. So the upper image shows that junction of Marriott's Drove and the B1093, which I referenced earlier. What you probably just can't quite see here is that to the left-hand side of the access drive of Marriott's Drove, there is actually a ditch between sort of the edge of the road and the field. And then the lower image shows the view of the site from the B1093 and sort of how, I suppose, visible the site is within the open agricultural landscape. So the site is considered remote from any settlement, and as such its location would be considered unsustainable and in conflict with the locational policy of the settlement hierarchy. The creation of the proposed bunds and erection of palisade fencing would create an alien feature to the detriment of the character and appearance of the area, while the necessary highway improvements cannot be delivered as they are reliant on land outside the red line application boundary. Additionally, in the absence of information to the contrary, it's not possible to assess the impact which the development would have on the amenity of the neighbouring dwelling. The recommendation is therefore to refuse the application as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, David. Once again, we have one speaker on the application, and I'd like to invite Alan Bedford. He's the applicant to make his presentation to the committee. You've got 5 minutes. So when you're ready to go, that's when your time will start. Thank you.
Firstly, I'd like to start by thanking the committee for the opportunity to present this case. As I'm sure you're all aware, the difficulties for small businesses in the current climate. I have 40 years experience in the construction industry, and they've been mainly spent in the Fenland area, in a variety of roles for several different local firms. The one thing that all these firms had in common was a clear desire and need to grow and diversify so that they could continue. Those that didn't, unfortunately, ceased to exist. Based on this knowledge, it has become clear that Fenland requires the opportunity to explore all possible revenue streams as potential ways to expand and diversify the business. To this end, the first thing that Fenland require is the opportunity to expand our product range. Since we have reached full capacity at our current rented location, we believe this is our only financially viable location in the local Whittlesea area. We believe that we are proposing to reuse and repurpose existing local infrastructure that would otherwise potentially become a derelict eyesore. We feel that we are offering an environmentally friendly solution. The proposed location offers us the best possible chance for Fenland as a business to achieve its goals in the medium to long term, which include the potential to generate additional employment whilst maintaining all our services in the local area. The proposal has the additional benefit due to the fact that it's available to purchase and giving us increased financial stability when times become difficult. We are aware of the fact that the planning officers have recommended refusal, partially due to the proposed earth bund surrounding 3 sides of the location. We believe the reasons for the proposed earth bund is threefold. Firstly, security. As I'm sure you're aware, security is a major concern for all businesses. We feel that an earth bund offers a suitable security method whilst more in keeping with the local surroundings, especially when we plant it with locally sourced plants on completion, rather than the unsightly security balustrade fencing, which is the only other alternative. Secondly, the planting scheme intended would allow for the creation of additional habitat so the local wildlife could flourish. Lastly, unfortunately, all industrial operations do generate a certain level of noise and dust. We believe the bund is the best way to reduce any possible impact on the surrounding area, although we also believe that our operations would impact less or no more than its current or original agricultural use. The only other reason that we are aware of for refusal is the road junction highway, which Highways has recommended small alterations to, which we have agreed to carry out. Highways did point out that this would need a small amount of land which is not in their ownership, but the landowner of the yard is also the owner of the field that it affects, and he has agreed that that would be in the sale of the yard, so generating the I think it's about 10 square metres of additional access. We would like to stress that the business that we run is not a factory-related industrial business with considerable noise and dust. The majority of the time, the yard would be relatively quiet and dust-free. The property next to the yard, the house, is also in the sale, and we would be buying that and using that potentially as an office or to rent out or even live in it myself. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Really comprehensive and very good too. I think we've learned quite a lot from your presentation. Members, questions, clarifications, please. Councillor Hicks, and then Councillor Fibberden, and did you want to speak after that? So, Councillor Hicks first.
The bit of land at the top of the road, is that actually going to go on the deeds of the property we're actually going to buy? Is that actually going, or is that just hearsay? He's going to sell it at a later date. Is that actually going to be in the deal? What you? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it'll be in the deal.
Thank you, Chairman. My question was, you did finally mention about the property next door that is also up for sale, and you'll be buying that. You hope to buy that and use it as offices for this. But what if that sale doesn't go ahead?
Basically, the hair sale is owned by the same gentleman who owns the farmyard, and the whole thing is being sold to us as one. But Mr. Broken, my architect, recommended that we didn't involve the house because we're not intending initially to use that as part of the yard. It's just in time it may become office space if we needed to expand our office facilities. But the property is definitely going to be owned by us. It's just that if this deal goes through, but the architect said there was no point in involving it at this current time because it's not going to be anything to do with this development, and it will remain a dwelling for the foreseeable future.
I think what you're trying to say, you've got an option to buy the house.
No, the option is that on the whole parcel, it's if I buy anything, I'll buy the whole thing. Yeah. But it's based on getting planning permission to move my business. If I can't move my business there, then unfortunately I shan't be acquiring any of it.
Okay, yeah, that's probably what I was meaning. The farmer said, well, if everything goes all right and you get planning permission, I'll give you first chance of the house. That's perhaps.
Well, the deal that I've negotiated with him is the house and the yard as one unit.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Marks.
Thank you. Mr. Bedford, I have to say we are in a yard running a mechanical business very similar to what you're looking to do here. Number one, great, it's out of the way, which is for any aggregate business a real benefit, and especially plant. To me, plant standing outside, I mean, you've obviously got sheds there, but it's really no different than agricultural equipment standing outside. Going on to the bunding, can you really see that being any taller than most reservoirs, which I've looked on Google Maps, that's what I was doing whilst the presentation was going on, and having a look around the area, it's going to look no different than really some of the raised reservoirs that are in the area?
That is correct. I mean, we've limited it to 3 metres. Basically, my father, God rest his soul, always worked on the assumption that what the eye don't see, nobody comes poking their nose around and trying to acquire.
Okay, so following on from that, living and working in the same place is obviously a bonus, and certainly a security bonus with plant. Is that one of the reasons why you want to live in the same place, same area?
Like I say, I'm a Coates born and bred. I moved into Whittlesea when I was growing up. I now live in East Street. Like I say, it'll be a little bit dependent on the missus, to be truthful, whether we actually move out there or whether my daughter or one of my sons do, or whether we rent it out as an additional stream. But obviously they will be made aware and that there is light industrial use right next door.
Okay, thank you. So following on from that, obviously it sounds like you're a family business. Vehicles, HGVs. Take it you've got HGV vehicles that come in and out. It says little plant lorries or little plant parking. What vehicles are actually going to be going in and out of there on a regular basis?
As things stand at the moment, we run a couple of transit vans, a couple of transit-sized tipper vehicles. We've got a 7.5 ton light HGV tipper for small aggregate sales, and then we run one 8-wheel roll-on, roll-off lorry, which we use for moving of the larger items of plant like forklifts and 8-ton diggers and dumpers, and also we have a tipper body for that to import the bulk amounts of aggregates into the proposed bays.
Okay, so are you coming out of the other Whittlesea property where you trade from now? Where you're trading from now, are you coming out? You're coming out of there, bringing it all to one site.
Yes, that's the intention, because basically where we are at the moment, it's on Station Road. It's a rented property. We're already, well, the landlord says we're trying to get a quart into a pint pot. So we're already running at maximum, and he's just restructured the rent, which basically works out a 15% rise. And it's got to a point where it's not feasible to carry on in that location. And over the last 8 years that I've ran businesses in Whittlesea, this is the only location that I've had that has got any opportunity at all to move forward.
And just following on from that, is most of your work Whittlesea direction? I'm just thinking about lorries going through Benwick and that way as opposed to going through Whittlesea, because obviously the highways have made that conclusion regarding the entrance to the Marriott Drove, which I know, but you're not going to be turning left on a regular basis. I guess you know, are you going to be going into Whittlesea more?
Well, Whittlesea is actually straight on at that junction. Obviously, there will. I can't tell you, if people in Benwick are going to have extensions or need their drives sorting out. So obviously, there is the potential for small amounts of traffic to go to the right, but the large majority, we tend to work in the Whittlesea, Thorney. I do a bit in and around Ramsey. I've just done a project for Ramsey Town Council, so there is the potential to go either way.
Yeah, I'll come in there then. Yeah, thank you for your honesty. It's very refreshing, really. And I see the use, because I used to have a scrap metal yard and I used to have a roll and off lorry myself. And that is a lot, that those lorries can be put to several uses. Like you said, it could be a plant trailer on it, a larger plant trailer, a tipping body and everything. So to me, that will cut down having 3 or 4 lorries, because that lorry can do 2 or 3 jobs, can't it? So I'm refreshed to hear that. I'm also refreshed and pleased to hear that you are talking to the owner of the field regarding the junction being improved. I'm pleased about that. So I'll listen to what everybody else has got to say, but at the moment, I just do feel that I can support this application as we speak. Thanks. Thank you. Mr. French?
Thank you, Mr. Bedford. It does say in the recommendations the applicant has failed to demonstrate that the highway works required to the ditch of the eastern side are deliverable. Obviously, when the ditch is there, you're not going to fill the ditch in, are you?
The plan is, I've spoken to the retired farmer. He's the one who owns that field, is the one that I'm potentially buying the yard now off. They have retired. They've rented the remaining land out to Mr. Easton. He's informed Mr. Easton that the potential is that we would fill a couple of metres of that dike in to generate the works. Plus, I have part of our business is that we do works on the highways. I have a street work supervisor ticket. My employees have the operatives ticket, so it's something we can actually undertake to carry out to the standards required ourselves.
So, in other words, it will, if you're going to fill part of it in, will you be piping it in the proper manner?
If it requires it, but I believe that is the last 2.5 metres of a run, and there is no pipe run underneath the road. So If there is a pipe that runs under Marriott's Drove from that dyke, then obviously yes, we would continue the pipe and put a new head wall in. But I believe you'll find that that is the end of a dyke, and it would just mean that the dyke ends 2 metres earlier.
And you're happy to do any work to that junction that is appropriate. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
What we're saying is we have agreed, I believe Mr. David Broker, my architect, did inform the planners that we were more than happy to do any works that are required to make it safe. Although I was at the location actually on Sunday, and there was Arctics coming from Benwick turning in there already, and they have done traditionally for the last however long Arctics have been on the road, and there's never been any need to alter that entrance. And the farmer even said that in the 70s there were several of the old-fashioned surveys done with people sitting there, and the council at several times suggested it, but it was found it wasn't required.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions before we let this gentleman go? No, thank you very much. It's been very good, very helpful to answer the questions. Members, it's now time questions for officers, if you have any, of course. Councillor Benny.
Yeah, thank you. Question to Nick or David. I see in the report that the land ownership question has come up about improvements to the junction. I mean, from what we've heard today, that land ownership will probably be put right, but we've had it before on applications where the land is in a third party ownership, where we pass it, but the land ownership or access over that land has to be sorted out. So if we pass the application today and the gentleman cannot obtain access or ownership of that the piece of land required, that more or less says that okay, we've approved it, but that it can't, because we can't achieve the junction requirements, that it will never be built anyway. Is this the same kind of thing we have here? Because that seems to me that if the ownership, that we've always been told that ownership is not a consideration of planning, and if that can be achieved, I'm using some words here which I don't really want to. I think you get where I'm going with it, Nick.
Through you, Chairman, our recommendation is that any approval at the committee today is subject to a revised red line being submitted, and that goes out to consultation, and we'd bring the application back to you if there was any adverse response to that.
Does that satisfy your questions?
It wasn't quite the answer I was expecting.
Carry on then, you may get it.
It's just, we had one in Parsons Drove a little while ago, and we approved the application for houses, but the access was not in the ownership of the applicant, and therefore we approved it. But if the access can't be sorted out, they'll never be built. The same sort of thing here. I mean, this poor gentleman's in a bit of a chicken and egg situation. He needs an approval to complete the sale, and if we can't approve this, then the sale won't go ahead.
Sale falls through, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I agree with you. But before I make a comment, I'm going to bring Councillor Hicks in.
I know we're in questions to officers.
We are.
If the gentleman owned the deeds as part of the deal to the top of the road, which he said when he sat down there, surely that's in his possession anyway.
Well,
so it's all the problem now.
Chairman, we're not in control of the buying and selling of land, and my recommendation in response to Councillor Benny's question is that given that physical works are required that go beyond what was being included within the red line of the application, it's much cleaner and much more secure for the red line to be amended. We put it out for 14-day consultation. Given that the land is all within the ownership of the current owner, it's unlikely to come back with some negative feedback. So it's a much more secure and appropriate approach given the circumstances of this application, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for that, Nick. I'm going to bring in Councillor Marks now. I'm sure he's got a question or two. Thank you.
Sorry, just so a question which is, if the applicant can demonstrate, because I know the junction, and he's right, lorries are going in there. There's beet lorries going in there. There's wheat lorries going in there. And there's potato stores down there, and none of them have come to any issue so far. If he can prove that to CCC, will he still need to do those upgrades? Can he talk? So if we give permission, and he then can prove beyond, and it sounds, gentleman sounds he does street works and stuff like that, so therefore he obviously, within reason, I guess knows what he's talking about. And so can we do, if we pass it, does he still need to do that work if CCC agree not?
Through you, Chairman, it is an option for you to defer an application to get additional information from the highways officer to enable you to make a decision. So that's option A. Option B is to approve this subject to the revised red line to facilitate the junction improvements. And option C is to ignore the advice of the County Council as highway authority and approve it as is. But that's not one I would recommend to you.
Right.
Chairman, you've got Councillor French.
Yeah, thanks, Nick, for that advice. Certainly, if it was minded to be approved, certainly A is not an option to defer it, and certainly option C I couldn't support, because highways do give the advice for good reason, and if we do ignore that advice, we could end up in hot water.
Okay, still questions to officers, of course. Councillor Benny.
Yeah. Coming back to option B, so if we approve this today, all you would need, because from how I see it, and I may be wrong, and I'm quite happy to be corrected, this gentleman needs to know whether we are going to approve the change of status of this land from agricultural to building, or to as a use as a builder's yard.
Yeah.
If he can't get the application for that, then his deal falls through. So we need to give him an approval to say, or no, we don't need to, but this is the option, that if we approve today, we accept that there is going to be a change of legal status of this land from agricultural to building, then he can proceed, because this is what he needs. If we give that, and then he's more or less told us that he's going to buy the land, the house, and this other 10 square metres of land, it's all in the deal, so that will all come through. So he's got his in principle agreement he's got the agreement that the changes the status of this land. Then to then go back and put the change in on the red line, you say that would be another application, Nick, or could that be done as an amendment to this? And the consultation period would be 14 days, because we don't want to time up in months and months of waiting for planning applications and that to come back. But, if he's moving, he wants to move quickly on this one, doesn't he?
Through you, no, it wouldn't be a new application. Your resolution would be approval subject to an amended red line that accommodates the junction improvements that have been sought by the County Council.
That seems fine. That seems fine to me.
Yeah.
And it could be done by officer delegation, could it?
Yes, the normal arrangement is that if there's no representations received that raise new issues that haven't been before committee, then it would be a delegated officer's decision.
Okay. So just going on from there, then. So if we gave permission today, with that only stipulation that you've got to go and get move the red line and get the work done, how long would this possibly take to come to fruition? Because like Councillor Benny says, we don't want it hanging about, or he doesn't want it, it doesn't matter to me, but he doesn't want it hanging about because he could actually lose the sale. So could it be done in a timely manner? I suppose that's the question I'm going to ask.
Through you, I'm not in the control of other people.
But you're in control of yourself, so how long will it take if everything went well?
I'm not in control of whether or not other people outside of Fenland do the tasks that they've been commissioned to do promptly. So we can't start a consultation until we receive the material from the agent.
Okay.
So, and at the end of the day, Chairman, you should concern yourselves with the appropriateness of the development proposal that's before you, not the machinations of buying and selling. I appreciate that that's in the background, but you need to separate that from your consideration.
I think we have. I think we have.
Really importantly, and not casting aspersions on the speaker, is you need to put completely to one side and ignore the statements made about potential purchase of the dwelling, because that doesn't form part of the proposal before you. So you shouldn't be making a decision on the assumption that the purchase is definitely going to happen or has happened.
I don't think anybody in this room has done that. We are just looking at the yard as is it fit for what is proposed to be done? And so, Councillor Benny.
Yeah, I mean, before we move out of questions, in case this needs clarification from Nick or David, I think really what the committee is looking for is the access. The access is the sticking point on this. We can debate the change of use of land when we go into debate, but I think Nick has given us the steer and the way where this gentleman will have to put on Bedford will have to put in another application when he's bought the land. He's in a chicken and egg situation. Without an approval to the change in status of the land, he can't proceed with the purchase. And if what he's telling us is right and the purchase comes forward to include that, then he can put another application in to amend the red line or put the new red line in, and therefore.
Yeah, through you, Chairman, no new application needs to be made. You just amend the existing one.
But that then resolves the issue that we've got. So yeah, as long as we're over that bit, then we can move to debate and then debate the change of use of the land.
Yes, it's clear.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think is it clear to everybody? Any more questions to officers before I bring this to a close?
No, thank you, Chair. I was just going to reinforce what's been said. It's not members' responsibility to assess and take account of private transactional arrangements, and that shouldn't drive or be seen to drive the timetable, because I haven't seen these documents and I shouldn't see the option or purchase documents, nor have members, and it isn't relevant to the planning considerations that should be taken into account.
No. Okay. So are we all clear on where we feel that we are at the moment? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. We'll move into debate. And who want to kick that off? Councillor Benny, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Another good application. We've got a business here that needs support from the council.
Yep.
You can't build these in the centre of a town. This is the perfect place for it. A bund. Well, we're going to have a reservoir up very, very soon that will be more than 3 metres high. I can think of 4 reservoirs I sat here that are around Chatteris that are of similar height to that. Councillor Marks knows more because he goes out in the countryside more than me. And, you know, to me, the change of use for this from a site, farm buildings are not used like they used to be. These are old style farm buildings. You know, if this blends to supporting a local business and helping somebody along, you know, building a bund, does that change the countryside? Everything we build has an effect, and it does change the view. As I've said many times, my old house was built in a farmyard. That's now nearly a mile into Chatteris that was on the outskirts. Everything you do changes it. It doesn't mean it's wrong, it just means it's different. And I think we've also discussed as a committee farm security and business security in a rural area. I think a bund is necessary for the type of business that's going to be taking place from here. I have no problems whatsoever with the change of use from agricultural to a builder's yard. It's a common sense place to put this, and if to me, reading the report, the sticking block was the access. I think if we can give an approval today, or I'd certainly support an approval myself, then that allows Mr. Bedford to move forward with his sale. There's nothing to do with us. I appreciate that. But once he's got this, that allows the process to run, and whichever way that runs, is, as Nick correctly pointed out, is well beyond the remit of this committee. And it's down to us to decide whether we think this is a suitable place for a builder's yard. And with a change on the red line, that will resolve the access point. And I see nothing wrong with this whatsoever. I think it's a good application.
Councillor Marks?
I totally concur. Councillor Benny, I would like to say also, builders' yards, we work in a builders' yards, the dust that's there during the summer, and it's a bit like the Battle of the Somme at night in the winter, we're taking that out of Whittlesea, which I would guess will also benefit the local businesses around Whittlesea as well. The noise, you're not going to get that if at 6 o'clock at night they need to load a lorry or whatever. It is definitely in the middle of nowhere. The view part I'm a bit confused by, because I don't think anybody's really got a view across that part of the fens. And the other thing is, with lorry movements, I think it's actually the right place for it. I know, just coming back to previously, I've spoken to, as I say, one of our engineers who actually lives down Marriott Drove. They've got lorries going in and out of there for potatoes. They are going in almost 24 hours a day. Neighbours don't complain. And then you've got the beet season and everything else around it, and also by doing the work at the entrance, it's going to benefit other people who live down that drove as well. So no, I totally support this.
Yeah, I agree with everything. I'm not going to go into it because I absolutely agree with everything Councillor Benny said and Councillor Mark says, and I shall be supporting this application with that condition of the red line being moved. So, anybody else got anything to say other than what's already said? Yes, Nick.
Thank you, Chairman. So, Councillor Marks in his comments there refers to builders' yards that he's aware of in town that cause noise, disturbance, dust, muddy conditions, etc. And clearly those things are going to come here next door to somebody's house. We can't guarantee that the speaker will acquire that property.
No.
So my question is committee comfortable with the stated implications as given by Councillor Marks? Are they comfortable with that relationship with the dwelling on site, or adjacent to the site, should I say?
You indicated you want to speak.
I know we have to consideration what's in front of us here, but what's been indicated is the fact that part of the whole deal is the house and the part applied for and the top of the road. I mean, I realise that you have to consider what's in front of you, and that's the part we're dealing with. But as I understand it, the whole deal is the whole lot. So, on respect of the bund, I believe that that's a better option than a fence, because you get the flora and fauna on it as well, which is a bio improvement. And also, I can understand the theory of actually having a bund, because you can drive through a fence. You can't drive up a bund when you try to protect plant on site. So I can see the full idea of having that.
Okay, that's fine. Councillor Miffordin, and then we've got Councillor Marks. Then hopefully that will finish that up.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to add that I am in support of this application. We say Fenland is open for business, and we have a gentleman here who's trying to grow his business, because where he is right now, from what he's told us, is not, it won't take the capacity of the growth, and his landlord's increasing his rent, and now he's looking to grow his business and improve it. We talked about the access, the number 3, the photo there, and there's a car parked on the right there. If you were driving an HGV through, you could easily get an HGV into it. It's the access is existing. There's been farms around it where lorries have been in and out for decades. So I personally don't see. I'm not saying we shouldn't follow the highways recommendations. I personally don't see where a site where an aggregate site will affect be any detrimental. The equipment is going to bring in probably smaller than what's already using that road at the moment, and the site is already built. He's not building a new site. The buildings are already there. He's going to make use of a more or less a derelict site. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Marks.
Thank you. Nick is right. I do think Nick is right regarding people living on site. However, we've heard it's a family business. The likelihood is either the gentleman's wife or family, or alternatively, we also heard it's going to be offices. If it's going to be offices, probably takes away the issue of dust more than if it's a family living there. However, again, I go back to what we said previously in a previous application, it's buyer beware. Obviously, if somebody's going to rent that, they are going to see what is there. And, so we can't have any control over that part of it. But also what it does do, by somebody living there, is good site security. And we've had that application before in Maney, where we had somebody wanted to live on site due to site security. And we've had 3 or 4 others around the Wisbech area. So to me, I think that far outweighs living next door to a builder's yard.
Okay. But I'm just going to remind you before you come in, Councillor Benny, or members, that we have got 4 reasons for refusal here. So, Councillor Benny?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we talk about dust and noise from a builder's yard. Anyone who's ever lived and worked on a farm knows that you can't open your windows in the summer because of the dust that comes off corn when it's being grown. You get tractors going up and down, you get fen blows. And you live in the country, you've either got mud or you've got dust, and one is no better than the other. And if you were going to live in that bungalow without a builder's yard, you would get dust off the fields, you would get dust off when they're combining all the mech, and that is real mess. Anyone who's ever lived in the fen knows you cannot open your windows in the summertime. So is a builder's yard going to add greatly to that? I think if you were going to move to that bungalow, you would be taking that into consideration, whether there was a builder's yard there or not.
So I think perhaps we've done this debate as much due diligence on this debate as we can. Officers, I'm going to close it now because I can't see any new hands up at all. Right. Thank you, everybody. I'd now like to invite I'd like a proposer. Do I have a proposer to go with the officer's recommendation to refuse planning permission? Obviously, there isn't one, so obviously that fails. So I'm looking for another proposer. Councillor Benny?
Yeah, I'd like to propose that we go against officer's recommendation and approve this application. Reasons being, LP3 is building outside the hierarchy of and building in the open countryside. Well, this is the perfect place to build a builder's yard. I don't see that as a reason to refuse it. I think I see that as a reason to approve it, if anything. Sorry? Oh. Yeah.
No, it's change of use. Most definitely it's change of use, but the wording was a little bit wrong, Councillor Benny, but I understand where you're coming from. Yeah. So it's just change of use.
Yeah, change of use. I think this is a good use of land. LP 12 and 16, that they are. You could go either way with those. Whether you're looking, does it improve or not? That's very subjective. The 3 metre high bund, I don't consider that to be any different from a reservoir, whether it's an Act Farmers or the big one that's come in here. And we've been given a steer as to where we need to go to look at the access to the site, and that can be amended by, or can be satisfied with an amendment to the planning application. So I think that
To the red line?
Yeah, the red line.
Okay, so that's clear. So, Councillor Benny's put a proposal forward. Have I got a seconder? Yeah, yeah, no. We have, haven't we? We've done 4, haven't we? Applications close front of the residential property applications failed to demonstrate that we know us. Well, it won't be, will it? Because we did mention it, didn't we, about the buyer beware, renter, buyer beware. We did mention that. Fleetingly, I have to say, but Councillor French, you still seconding it? Well done. Go on.
And Chairman, that's subject to the amended red line in respect of the highway improvements that the highways have requested, and delegated authority for conditions, should there be no matters raised in the consultation that you are not aware of already.
Okay. I would look, just as chairman, I would like to be kept abreast of this and see if that's possible.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. So if that's the case, then I'm happy to go with all those. I think we've got all the 4 reasons for refusal. I think they're nicely boxed off. So we've got an application to go against officer recommendation to approve this application, proposed by Councillor Benny, seconded by Councillor French. Can I have a show of hands on that proposal?
That's a unanimous decision, Chairman.
So that application has been approved with that just one condition. Thank you. That moves us nicely on to agenda item 9. Nick is going to do the... Sorry? Yes, you're going with this. I'm just... Nick is going to present this application F/YR 230460. It's a Fenland District Council application. Just intimated it's agenda item number 9. So, Nick, please.
Mr. Chairman, can I just have it noted that I am a member of Cabinet, but we have never discussed this at Cabinet level.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Joe, you can make a... Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Councillor French.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Given that this was at committee not that long ago, I'll only touch on the Billy basics of the proposal and the situation, and to save you some time. But if you want to have the full fat version, I'm more than happy to give that to you.
Members, I think we it was only in October last year. I think we're all pretty conversant with what it is. I think we should get on.
So when you last considered the proposal for the pair of dwellings, you deferred the decision, giving the agent / applicant a second bite of the cherry in order to demonstrate that the the sequential test was passed. We've had that information that's in your committee report, and the applicant's own information demonstrates that there are alternative sites available in the village of Murrow, and therefore this proposal does not pass the sequential test, and therefore you've got a recommendation for refusal before you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I have one speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Matthew Hall. He's the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. Obviously, when you're nicely seated and ready to go, you've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, members. Members will remember this application from October's committee when it was deferred, not refused. There is one single reason for refusal, as the site is in flood zone 3. Numerous sites in Fenland have been approved in flood zone 3, providing the Environment Agency have no objection, which on this site they don't have an objection. The officer's report already confirms that the principle of residential development of this site is acceptable. The report confirms the site is infill development is within the continuous built-up form of Murrah and would not have any adverse impact on the visual amenity. There have been no objections to this application from any consultees, no neighbours or any persons in Murrah. The application has the support of the Parish Council, Environment Agency, Tree Officer and Highways Officer. Looking at the map behind us on Google Earth, you can see obviously the red line where the site is, and it's clearly in the built-up form of Murrah, as the officer says. To the northwest of the site, there's a thin strip of land there. There's a dwelling approved there in 2016 and 2019, which is under this local plan, and that site is in flood zone 3. And I think all of those houses you see on that map there are in flood zone 3. At the October committee, members requested further information on the surrounding properties. Inham's Close, where this site is, and the adjacent Pentelow Close, the applicant on those properties was Fenland District Council, and they built those properties out. Some, not many, are in private ownership, and also some are owned by Clarion. All of those properties are in flood zone 3, just like this site. We've had discussions with Anglian Water, which have got an asset just to the west of this site, and they're happy. There's been backwards and forwards there, and they're happy with the proposal. The site, in our opinion, should be approved against officer recommendation. There's been no objection from the Environment Agency. The principle of development here is compliant. Policy compliant is infill development. The other sites on adjacent roads in Murrah that are in flood zone 3 have also been approved under this local plan. We had an independent flood risk assessment submitted to the Environment Agency, approved. It's an ideal starter homes within the built-up form of Murrah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Hall. Questions, members, clarifications to Mr. Hall, and we'll kick off with Councillor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Flood zone 3. I hear it all the time. It sends shivers up my spine, to be fair, because we have the same with Wiz Beach, and there doesn't seem to be an issue, but it seems to be everywhere else in Fenland we've got an issue with it. What mitigation could be put in place because we've had at least one in Maney where we've raised it to almost 2 metres out of the ground, yeah. and it looks like a tower standing there on its own, totally out of congress to the rest of the fens. And when flooding happened, it was a mile away. So, what mitigation do you believe could be put into place there?
Within the flood risk assessment that the consultant carried out, it said raised that the properties that are directly next to this site, their floor level is about 150 mil above the ground, which is the minimum. On this site, the flood risk assessment has asked for it to be 0.3 metres, slightly above the ground, so a foot above the ground. There's various other measures. They're masonry built, not timber frame. 2, there's other measures where you had flood resilient measures inside, where you put plasterboard horizontally, plastic sockets, plastic vents over any beam and block floor vents. That's in the flood risk assessment, and the Environment Agency have approved those mitigation measures.
Yeah, so I'll come in there, I think. So can you just reiterate to me what objections have we had, or have we had any objections? Can you just go through them again, please?
So looking back on once this was submitted, and even when it was deferred to today, there's been no objections from any consultees, no neighbours, nobody from Murrah. No consultees have objected to this at all.
A full house then, which is good. Right, thank you. Any more? Councillor Marks.
Sorry, you did say about some of the properties. We go back to that photograph on the right, but they look like new build. I don't know when these photographs, usually they're dated as to when these photographs actually happened. You say 16 for some. I take it this is a newer photograph than 16, and I guess they all fall into flood zone 3 around that area. Can you confirm?
So the properties in the northwest corner, as it were, the ones along the bottom line, looking at some of the approvals of 2016 and 2019, There's other approvals in the northwest corner that are also under this local plan. Some of those, again, to the northwest corner, I think, are 2012, 2013. This area here to the right is earlier than that, but yes, there are definitely some in the northwest corner, 2016, 19, I think 13. Yes.
So just in this in the current local plan, then, most definitely, then.
Yes.
Okay. Any more questions for? No. Thank you very much. So we come questions to officers. I'm looking.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Rewind backwards. You want to give a. Okay, that's fine. Sorry. Carry on.
Okay, thank you. It says, sorry, Nick David. It says here there are currently 5 sites, 7 dwellings within the submitted sequential test area. What area is that? Is there a radius
Within Murrow.
Within Murrow, and does anybody actually know how many houses there are within Murrow?
I don't know how many dwellings there are in the settlement of Murrow, but that's irrelevant when applying the sequential test.
Right. Okay.
As is, it's irrelevant to consider past development within the village. The sequential test is about, are there any locations in the settlement which are consented, are allocated in the local plan, which can go ahead of this proposal? And the answer is, as submitted by the applicant themselves, yes, there are several planning permissions that haven't been implemented, and therefore those need to be used up before this site can be considered.
So it's not done on a percentage basis. If there's like 2,000 houses or 500 houses and a percentage on that, it is done. How do they arrive at that 7 dwellings before this can be taken into consideration?
Because those are the sites that have got planning permission.
Okay, that bit I follow, but what's the wonderful number? There must be a number where you say, if it went down to 3, then you would give permission. It won't be on a 1-to-1 basis, surely.
Effectively, it can be, yes, because if you've got a settlement which doesn't have a specific development target, and you're not running into problems with your 5-year land supply or your housing delivery, it's perhaps too crude to say it, but it's the best way of getting the message across. It's effectively can be 1 in, 1 out in this type of scenario.
So how have we got to 7?
Because that's the number of properties, that's the number of plots have been granted planning consent that are waiting to be implemented.
Yeah. Sorry, sorry.
I think just to add to Nick's point there, and I think to probably answer the question that you're getting at, some of those properties are not within flood zone 3. They will be within flood zone 1 and at a lower risk of flooding.
Thank you, but no, that isn't what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is how do we get 1-to-1? Because obviously we've got to 7 and then saying no more. How did 7 become the magic number?
I think.
The 7 isn't a magic number, as David's explained, because of decisions made on planning applications that are at lower flood risk, for example, than this site. That's why they've been granted planning consent, because at the time of considering those applications, there were no sites at lesser flood risk, and that's where we're at. Yeah.
Okay.
Or indeed, they're in flood zone 1 and didn't need to pass the sequential test.
Okay. Councillor Marks, have you finished? Okay. Councillor Hicks.
Just as a matter of curiosity, how many of those 7 other applications sit within flood zone 3?
I think probably that's just been explained, but if you just
I don't have that information to hand. Sorry.
Through you, Chairman, if I may. So just looking at the sequential test, one of the sites here is in flood zone 1, another one of the sites is in flood zone 2, flood zone 1, flood zone 1. And one of them hasn't had a flood zone attributed to it.
Okay. Councillor French, you want to come in? So questions to officers, obviously, just to reiterate.
Yeah, so regardless whether it's 5 or 7, I mean, there's no guarantee that these 7 are going to be delivered, is there? And the second question I'd like to ask, how long have these 5 or 7, whatever it is, actually had planning permission? Is it years and they're running out of time, etc.?
That's a very pertinent question.
Through you, Chairman. So again, referring back to the sequential test, this is the planning permission from 2022, 2022, 2022, 2023.
Okay. Okay. But this, I think I'll leave more comments, I think, until the debate. So any more questions to officers? Can't see any. Thank you. Now I'm going to open the debate. Who wants to kick this off? Yeah? Hang on, please do, Councillor Hicks.
Looking at that map there, all the other properties, I know this has been said by the agent, all the other properties around it sit within flood zone 3. So what makes that a special site, not to pass that one when it's exactly the same as all the others? What have been already built on there?
You'll perhaps be able to make a note of that and probably come back at a later date. Right, thank you for that. Councillor French.
Thank you. We're in debate, are we?
Did say that we're in debate.
Yeah, I do remember visiting this site whenever it was last year. I think it's a good standalone development. It's a brownfield site. It was an old waterworks or something, I believe. I think it's a site that, you know, it's a good use of land. And as I asked the question, there's no guarantee that all these ones, the other ones, whether it's 5 or 7, will actually be built out. So I'm not sitting on the fence, but I haven't made up my mind yet.
Okay. Councillor Marks, and I'll come in, I think.
Thank you. I struggle all the time with flood zone 3. I go round and round in circles. In fact, I have nightmares about flood zone 3. We've heard we can mitigate against it. We've got a development there that's got a road. We're not going into any open countryside as such. We're not doing anything else really, you know, where we've seen today. We've had another development for 5 that was in a field that was flood. We haven't got that, and we can mitigate against the flood zone. Yeah, the sequential test, I'm dubious because I don't quite understand, and I'm going to be talking to David afterwards or at some point so he can explain more to me, because I still can't understand how we get to that. Well, it's up to 7, so therefore we can have no more. You know, things drop out, things happen, and Murrah, like anywhere else, I'm sure needs properties, building or whatever. There may be other reasons why builders haven't built in other areas. I'm sorry, at the moment, I'm actually going the other way and for support of this application.
Yeah, thank you. This to me, this sequential test is a lottery. Should I be saying that? That's my true belief it is. Because if somebody came in the next month and absolutely loved Murrah, they want to bring their family to Murrah, and they bought 5 or 6 or 7 houses, however many there is, preferable sites, that would be passed, because that would be a site. So that's a lottery. So, to me, I just feel there's so much in favour of this site, and to not take Councillor Benny's thing that you put it in a mixing bowl, you mix up all the bits and pieces like we heard at a seminar once. You put all the good in, you put a little bit of the bad in, you shake it all about, and you come up to some agreement with it. You come out to some. And my feelings are at the moment, and I'm of course open to listen to others, that I could support this, because I think it brings two plots of land, or one plot of land in, or whatever, into play. We say we need homes. I know we've got a 5-year land supply, but I just feel this is crying out for some sort of development here. On the things that I've explained. 7, somebody bought 7. That wouldn't even come to committee. That would get passed probably by officer delegation anyway. So I just think it's an absolute lottery. So as it stands at the moment, I will be supporting this application. Thanks. I'm willing to listen to anybody else. Anybody else has got anything to put to it?
If I could come in.
Yeah, still in debate, of course.
Yeah. So, an analogy that I could put to you is that the sequential test is like a beautiful fruit competition at a horticultural show. So, if you've got a choice of 10 bananas to pick one from those 10 bananas to put as your competition entry, you're going to pick the best and beautiful banana to put into that show. And that's what the sequential test is about. It's about using the sites which are best in terms of flood risk. And you'd only choose an uglier banana if you didn't have the option of choosing the more beautiful ones. So that's my analogy for the sequential test.
Yeah. You can use that in another planning meeting. So I'll bring Councillor Marks in, and then you want to come in, Councillor Hicks, after that?
Thank you, Nick. That's a lovely analogy, and I think that's absolutely great. However, supermarkets these days also deal in wonky fruit as well. So something may not quite be right. However, it shouldn't be overlooked either. We've got a site there that for two houses or 2 properties, that will mean 2 families have a home. We've got round the initial part of the flooding by raising it out of the ground or doing whatever we need to do with mitigation. Yes, we have 7 sites in Murrah, but we don't know what's behind those 7 sites. Yeah, they may be in flood zone 1, 2, whatever, and better sites, but equally, people may want to build on them. They may have bought them for whatever purpose, and they may be going land bank for a period of time. And we're holding up two properties that could be family type homes. So yeah, I love your analogy, but I'm on the wonky fruit side. Sorry.
To carry on with the horticultural theme for a moment, if I may. No, I shall switch my analogy. So what Councillor Marks is saying is, yes, you're having to take an exam in a modern language. If the exam is French and you turn up and try and write German, then you're not going to do very well. So if the competition is a beautiful fruit competition, you're going to be judged on beautiful fruit. And it's the same with the sequential test. The test is about choosing the sites that have least flood risk first. And if you've got a number of sites which are at lesser flood risk and have a planning consent, then the rules of the game are that those should be used up first. And if those ones with planning permission lapse, then obviously those fall off the list of available sites at lesser flood risk. Thank you, Chairman.
So, I'm on the side of the wonky fruit too. As I sit here. Yeah, I'm just wondering how to follow on that, but I'll take Councillor Hicks and take Councillor French.
I didn't mean it to sound flippant, but on this imaginary contest of entering bananas, surely you should only be allowed to enter one banana in this competition, not 7. Because, I mean, with your sequential test, I mean, you've entered more than one entry. So, I mean, how many are you allowed to enter in this imaginary competition?
Councillor French.
Thank you. I've sat on this committee for many years, and I have to say it's the first time I knew that Nick Harding was a comedian. Thank you for that, Nick. I think some of the things, I don't know whether it's 5 or 7 or whatever. I did ask the question, do you know they're going to get built out? If so, when are the, as Charlie said, are the land banking? This is a good standalone development. It's a brownfield site. I don't know about the others, whether they're brownfields or greenfields or whatever. I think it's this site. I think is ideal for building. You can get over the flooding issues, as we all know. So I will be supporting it.
Okay. Is this just to confirm? This is a brownfield site.
Sorry, I can't
bring bananas in this one.
No, there's no fruit analogies, I'm afraid. Just referring back to the original officer report, talks about the site is flat grassland occupied by 2 trees.
But it's an old waterworks. It's a brownfield site. We were out there. We visited the site.
Yeah.
You can't get away from it. It's a brownfield site.
Yeah. My thoughts are it is definitely a brownfield site, and it says. Government says, and the MPP have said, we should be building out brownfield sites before we go into greenfield sites. So if that is the case, this is preferable to the other 5, 6 or 7, because we're only going by policy. We're still in debate, everybody, but anybody else want to add to this? I think we nearly completed it. Definitely a brownfield site, though, isn't it?
With a second,
okay.
Chairman. Through you, as far as I can tell, the waterworks are to the left of the application site, and the area contained within the red line doesn't appear to me to be brownfield in nature. That's the waterworks there.
Yeah, it's a drawing in it though, isn't it? Okay. So we're still in debate. Anybody want?
I believe it's a brownfield site. If this application isn't approved, it's going to be another piece of land, and we've got so many of these across Fenland, that's going to end up either a dumping tip, or just left to go absolutely wild. I believe it's the ideal site to develop.
So we're still in debate. I'm going to close this debate now because we seem to be going round in circles, and I'm going to bring officers in.
Nothing else from me, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Stephen.
Thank you, Chairman.
Executive would like to come in there.
Just to remind members that this land is owned by the council, and members need to be scrupulous in dealing with this application in the same way as they would with any application. I'm not saying you haven't been, but that's just in the background. And also, as Nick, I think, has mentioned, that the sequential policy is embedded in your own local plan, but also in the National Planning Policy Framework. And to depart from that policy needs good planning reasons. I just wanted to mention.
I'd like to come back there. I think this planning committee is impartial. It always is, as far as I'm concerned, and I am absolutely confident this application is being treated like any other one that's up for our adjudication in past planning applications. So I want to make that clear. Just because it's a Fenland District Council application does not give it any head start, so to speak. Thank you. Come back. So do I have a proposer to go with officer's recommendation to refuse this planning permission? So it's up for refusal. Do I have a proposer to go with officer recommendation? I can't see anybody wanting to do that, so that obviously has failed. So I'm going to ask for a different proposal now. And when we've got one, we want some conditions. So, Councillor Marks, you've indicated that you'd like to propose it, probably?
Yeah, I'd like to go against officer's recommendation on this occasion. I may need some help with the reasoning at the end of this, but I'm sure everybody will pitch in. Okay, so if I start, firstly, we believe this is a brownfield site, which I think on the sequential test it should take priority over other sites that are available there. I think the development itself we can mitigate against, as we've already heard from the agent, regarding it being in flood zone 3, and we don't know what the other 7 applications are within the village. We don't know if they're going how long they're going to be before they're built out. Hopefully this will be built out pretty quickly and bring reasonable homes into Murray.
If I may, Chairman, thank you very much for those reasons, Councillor Marks. I think in my view, I don't think that those express why the sequential test can be cast asunder, but if that's the reasoning, then that's the reasoning, Chairman.
I think Councillor Marks wants to add to that, probably.
Again, sequential test, as we've heard, we've got 2, if not, sorry, I think we've got 4 properties. It's 3 in flood zone 1, 3, 2, if not in flood zone 2. Okay, but they seem to have been there for a period of time. Nothing seems to, from what we can understand, happen of them. They are, we believe, greenfield sites as opposed to a brownfield site, which, as we've heard, national policy is to take brownfield sites, forward. And again, it's bringing more properties into Murray that I believe are needed.
That's making Murray more sustainable, isn't it? So, yeah. Anybody want to add to that, Councillor French?
Yeah, I think this, because it is a brownfield site, this site is actually considered more sequentially preferable to others.
Well, Councillor Marks has proposed it. Sorry, that with delegated authority to apply conditions. Yes, not too onerous ones, though. I always say that. They're always generally fair.
Reasonable.
Sorry?
Reasonable.
Yeah, onerous. Yeah, reasonable, whatever you want to put on it. Yeah, so anyway, going back on it, now to finish this off, we've got a proposal to go against officer recommendation. It's proposed by Councillor Marks. Who would like to second it? You've done very well today. I'll take you, Councillor Hicks. Sorry, Councillor Hicks. You've done some excellent. Now, don't get carried away now. No, I can soon alter it. Okay, you've done very well today. So I'm going to take Councillor Hicks to second it. Can I have a show of hands on that proposal, please?
That's a unanimous decision, Chair.
That application has been approved. Thank you very much.
Chairman,
with reasonable conditions.
Before you close the meeting, Chairman, I'd just like to say thank you very much to Carol Pilson for her support since she's been my director. An absolute massive thanks to David here, who has been an amazing officer. You don't know how lucky you are to have David on your team. A brilliant set of planning officers that I've worked with over the years at Fenland. Wonderful support from Democratic Services, particularly Joe, and also fantastic support from Stephen on the legal side. And I wish you all well for the future. Thank you, Chairman.
And it would be rather remiss of me not to also have the last word, wouldn't it? But as most of you know, it's Nick's last committee meeting as head of planning here at Fenland. I know we all wish him well in wherever he wishes to take his next semi-retirement, retirement, or next avenue where he wants to go. So thank you, Nick. It's been sometimes It's been difficult, but you've kept us in check most of the time. And thank you so much. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to close this meeting at 4 minutes. Thank you very much.